So I made pasta tonight, and no, tonight is not pasta night. Sunday night is pasta night, but Sunday night I did not have pasta, and the whole week has been completely off. Like I had soup yesterday. It's all ending, so I figure, well, I mean, if the world's gonna end, I need to eat that pasta now before it does. So go get you some pasta. And I did, and it was delicious. But speaking of the world ending, I know tariffs have been all over the place, and I'm not an economist. If like anyone should even listen to them half the time, but definitely don't listen to me. I have no business, so I just keep my opinion to myself. But it does make me think of a question that I've wondered for a really long time, and I'm not the first one to ask this question, and that is, why does good art seem to come from bad periods? It's a dangerous question because it gives the false impression that there's some nobility in poverty. But if you look at it, it's very rarely the actual people who are suffering that rise from this period. It's just the timing of the artist then. So no, we cannot nobilize poverty. And also because it implies that to be an artist, one must intentionally cause suffering to themselves or to others. And no, also, again, completely not necessary. Wallace Stevens, one of the best modern American poets, he was an insurance executive in the 1950s. Like, he was not living the renegade life, and he wrote some of the greatest poetry in American English. So you have to think about it that way, but it is still a question, and it does seem to happen. But I think that if you look at institutions and what happens to them during periods of disorder or during downturns, they start to fracture. And if you look at like American realism, for example, it really took off in post-depression, and that was a bad time economically. So institutions are not giving the artist money, but artists like Grant Wood and Edward Hopper came from this time period. Amazing painters, American Gothics, like one of the most famous paintings of American art. And this happens all over the world. So it's not just in the US, it's not just in the English language universe, it's in all languages, this pattern. And some people might like to think it's because during that time period, the institutions themselves aren't strong enough to suffocate artists. But I really think that it's actually because the artists themselves aren't appealing, no longer are bound to appeal a very small audience of cultural elite or institutions. Now they have to try to create art for a much broader audience in order to gain support to be an artist, to gain support for their life. And if you look at Hollywood, this is a great example because now Hollywood makes two movies, crap and sequels to crap, and then they make these arty films that no one really watches except for that little elite filmmaking bubble, and they're depressing, and they call it art, and it's usually about depressing things. It's not made for a wide audience, which you really have to question, why would you intentionally make art that is not to be, that you don't want everyone to be able to enjoy? So there's kind of an elitism baked into that, but the great movies of Hollywood were not only artistic, but they were made to appeal to everyone. They were made to appeal to the broadest audience possible, to entertain them or to enlighten them or to tell them a story. And so I think that it's during these economic downturns, during these times of war and just general depressions, that artists themselves are forced to try to figure out ways to create art that your average busy person, your average person that doesn't have much, what is going to make this person think what you have is valuable enough that they will want to spend some time to look at it. And so I think making art that you can force your uncle who just spends all day long on Facebook and doesn't like art. If you can make something that makes like your Papa Randy say like, yeah, that was great, then you've really won something. So aspire to make the person that doesn't like art like what you create. I think that should be like an ethos. It's an ethos that I have. I don't know how well I do at it, but I do try. And I wrote this poem as kind of a tribute to art made in bad times. And it's called And the Swift Colts Raced. Like a marshy pit in high tide, a bewildered earth-turned island, shrinking back against the sea. What stillborn dreams lie under silt, buried foundations weigh burdens of scooped soil by hand, to build anthills on scales, and nothing like a tipping point that never spills a drop. How long did hope cling underneath crescent moon fingernails, jagged and pink? Wishes kept from rest, piled on life support. What jolts hearts at midnight, when black is a color, this thing that lies flat in a darkness grows bolder, and the swift colts raced with the surf. What was never followed after, and the yellow lace shears, the days of linen, moth-eaten fibers hold their form only to unravel in soft hands' touch. These trinkets decayed before the roof caved in on the home that sheltered nothing human before the fall, scraps for the bird's nest.